And I believe that the only way to creating wealth, creating sustainable wealth, is through emotional healing. Anything else to me is bypassing, honestly.
Yeah. Ultimately, I don't think there is such a thing as financial freedom. There is only emotional freedom.
Yes. Whoa.
Because you can have any
Love
amount of money and still not be free.
Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be doing. I'm your host, Nadine Zalmat. Welcome to the Unfuck Your Money Show. Today's episode is a collaboration between myself and my good friend Ryan Roi, who is a financial coach as well. Ryan Roi is the host of the Artful Dollar podcast and the Artful Dollar and the Artful Marketer, I believe, programs. So Ryan is a financial coach, like I mentioned. He works with artists and creatives, and specifically tattoo artists. And I guest teach in his program every month. And we just sat together, hit record, and started talking about money, emotions, the manifestation, the toxic manifestation practices that have been running amok in the coaching industry these days. We also talk about a lot of things. There's lots of laughter in this episode, lots of lightness, and I hope you enjoy.
Is this the Unfuck Your Money podcast, or is this the Artful Dollar podcast?
It's both. It's the same. Actually,
the Unfuck Your Artful Dollar podcast.
I mean, one lends to the other, right? Like, so.
So, welcome to the Unfuck Your Artful Money podcast with your hosts, Ryan Roi and Nadine Zalmat.
Yep.
Zalmat.
You have to look angry when you say it. Zalmat. Yeah.
Okay. And we have our love of looking at our relationship with money is what brought us together 4 years ago.
Yep. Well, I would say 5-ish. 4 in a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was 2020.
2020. Okay, so 2020,
2021,
5.
2022, 2023, 2023. Yeah, 5. Holy shit.
Holy shit. 5 years. I know. So here we are. I mean, it's our love of looking at our relationship with money, but also our love for unfucking our money and helping others unfuck their money, because we've been through shit and we don't want
we've been so fucked.
We've been so fucked.
We've been so fucked.
We don't want other people to go through that pain, honestly. Like,
right.
That's why I went into it. I don't want people to feel like they can't live their full lives or express themselves fully because of how money makes them feel, because money can make us feel so insecure and so doubtful about ourselves, our
now,
voice,
does
our
money
expression.
make you feel that way?
I feel that way. It doesn't, though. I see what you mean. Like, you're playing. Money and I are besties, even though we have moments, right? Yeah. But I wouldn't say money makes me feel, but in general, we blame money.
We do.
For not being able to live in full expression of our lives.
Right. And I guess I'm assuming you kind of came to the same realization that I came to at some point in your life, where you're like, okay, I could keep trying to figure this thing out, or I could keep trying to figure that thing out, or I could keep trying to figure that thing out. But all that shit would just get way easier if I just figured the money thing out.
Yes. Right? Because it just has many aspects to it, right? Like, it's your self-worth, it's your attachments, it's your relationships, it's your connection with yourself, it's connection with resources. It's your nervous system. Money is an embodied experience. A lot of, like, what I have grown into over the past 5 years since we started is that money is not a mind experience. It's a body experience. Your nervous system has more to do with money than anything. And yeah, it's a whole body thing. Even though we think it's mathematics, it's totally not.
It's 10% mathematics, 90%.
Yeah.
It's 10% mathematics and 99% body.
Because it's 111%. That's our standard, right? Like, angel numbers, babe. Okay.
Yeah. And I've been more and more I think we've both been kind of coming, but you definitely have dove deep down the path of nervous system trauma work. I've learned so much from you from that. When I'm going through my money stuff, you're the person I call.
Yeah. And I get to teach in TAD, which is always a monthly delight. I love connecting with your people, and it's nice to be part of a family. And I think the vision for both of us in the beginning is that we create something where the other person is always welcome. So
and
we're doing it.
We're doing it. We're doing the thing we said we would do 5 years ago, which is crazy.
Isn't it nice? Yeah.
And I don't know if we should introduce each other because we're sharing this podcast on each other's podcasts, but like people know who you are in your audience. People know who I am.
So we introduce each other. I see. I like it. So I introduce you. So I can say who I think you are, and you can say who I think.
Who do you think I am?
You're Ryan Roi. You're one of my close friends, and you help artists, really, tattoo artists mainly, with unfucking their relationship with money. And you're a financial shaman for reals. Like you've got a really cool relationship with money, and you're so much fun. And I just love hanging out with you. So that's you to me.
Nadine is also I view you as a wizard, an alchemist. Like you transmute. Nadine's a total bitch. Let me just be honest, okay? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Nadine's a total bitch. And
I'm a money badass bitch. Yeah, thanks. Exactly. I like your version. We can go with that.
You're not though. You're so sweet. Not. Like I know. Considering the cards that life has dealt you at times in your life, I'm surprised you're not a bitch. But I think ultimately it was like you and I met in a Facebook group for financial coaches, and it was all these like Bible thumping, minivan driving soccer moms, and then you and I, and we were just like, what the fuck are we doing here? We have somewhere in life we've made a bad turn.
We had to meet each other.
And we got absolutely nothing out of that program other than we had to unlearn a lot of that other than this friendship. And sometimes life is like that. I've been on a kick about synchronicity over and over and over again. I've been bringing it up a lot in my podcast, in my program, that you can try to plan your life as best as you possibly can. You can try to execute on that plan as flawlessly as possible, but it's not going to impact your life to the degree that those random, unforeseen circumstances that didn't seem to, in the moment, maybe be the right move. Maybe you kind of felt like, what the fuck am I doing? Or maybe it felt terrible. Maybe it felt like the absolute horrible wrong move. And yet it played out. Move. It was the best move. Exactly.
True. Yeah. It's more about being like playing the long game and staying in the game to see it through rather than being just short-sighted and like, oh my God, that post didn't work. Meh. As opposed to like, this is compounding. This is compounding. Whether the post works later on or its job in your life is to help you practice, help you express yourself better. It's a stepping stone. But we're so focused on these short-term goals, and we've been talking about that in our private messaging about frustration.
Manifestation.
my anti-manifestation campaign.
Yeah.
Which is just to say that when we first started, it wasn't that big, not as far as I know. And now everybody and their mom have become a money manifestation coach.
Right.
And the way it's being sold is that it's so like short-term riches as opposed to how to build wealth, how to create a
how
sustainable
to manifest
business.
Something quickly.
Yes, it's about like the quick wins. But here's the thing. If something doesn't manifest, to your point earlier, if something doesn't manifest exactly like you want it to be, then you're a failure. Whether it's you express that explicitly or it's internal, you didn't do it right. You didn't believe in yourself hard enough. which
Right.
really is making a step away from that synchronicity and the magic because we're trying to control everything. It's like we turn manifestation into capitalism of like, oh, hey, this is something that we can exploit it. We can do this. We
Right.
could do that. Blah blah blah.
Right. Yeah. So I think, and this is a constant conversation. And I think you and I think we come at it from different angles, but I think we ultimately are very aligned in our
The
beliefs.
yin and the yang. Yeah.
Because while I'll take the yang, while I could say I believe in manifestation, it has proven itself in my life time and time again. The power of the vision and the practice and the energy and what you put out comes back to you.
Okay. Yeah.
I do also feel like it doesn't work if I'm just smearing it on top of
Smearing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
The icing on a mud pie.
Yes.
Of like the deep-seated insecurity or belief, and doing that internal work is what has allowed me to benefit from these manifestation practices.
Yeah.
That's my take on it, at least.
Well, what also happens sometimes is that we're sold this like shiny, glitzy, glittery image of what life could be. And for us, if we're in suffering, if we're like in a job we don't like, or we're in a financial situation that's really, really painful for us, we look at that image and how easeful it is, or whatever words they use, that's going to save us. It's going to save us from, it's our savior. So we stop pursuing it from a place of like, oh, this is nice, which is how it's supposed to be, to like, this is going to save me. But I'm not shaming here, because when we are in financial pain, we are really in a lot of pain. And of course, we're going to seek out anything that's going to get us out of that pain that's making us feel like we're threatened at a survival rate, right? Like it's really deep, deep pain. It's not like, oh, it's uncomfortable. It's scary as fuck. So when we look at that, we start looking at it as, this is my savior, or this is going to help me not feel abandonment ever again, or this is going to protect me from this or that, and that becomes an avoidance
this is going to
tactic.
fix me.
Yes.
And then if manifestation's going to fix you, well, then you have to be broken.
Exactly, right? So we become obsessed with changing ourselves.
Here's the thing. The word manifestation is so charged with so much.
Charged, yeah.
And so, like, you see these, I see these manifestation coaches on social media all the time. And I've worked with a manifestation coach. Like, I've paid someone.
Hey, look.
I like some of them. Some of them, I cringe so hard when I see them. Ultimately, this thing that we try to speak of, like the truest truths in reality in the world, are paradoxes. They ultimately are. The closer you get to the truth, the more paradoxical they get, the more
like a Russian doll kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like the deeper you go, there's more dolls, there's more dolls.
And the human brain does not like paradox. It wants to be able to fit it into an either it is or it isn't scenario.
Well, when we are in survival mode, when we are struggling financially, for example, or we're struggling with something, right? We are in our survival brain. In the survival brain, like exactly what you just said, it cannot take in nuances because it's either fight, flight, free, die kind of thing. Like it's black or white. There's no nuances. But then we're in our survival brain, but we're relying on such a nuanced thing like manifestation that is going to save us. That is not registering because we're not in our reasonable brain. We are in survival brain. And you're just saying, hey, this thing that the survival brain can't see is going to save you. And you're like, no, I need a cave, or I need $1 million in the bank. Like, give me something concrete. I cannot rely on something I can't see, right? So we're in two different brains when we're relying on that. I believe in magic. I used to teach manifestation in my programs. I don't believe in it in the way it's being taught right now. I believe in magic, and I believe that the only way to creating wealth, creating sustainable wealth, is through emotional healing. Anything else to me is bypassing, honestly.
Yeah. I said it, and I can't remember where I said it, either on a podcast or I said, ultimately, I don't think there is such a thing as financial freedom. There is only emotional freedom.
Yes. Whoa.
Because you can have any amount of money
and
still not be free.
I know. Because you pursued the 10K, the pie in the sky 10K month goal. 10K month isn't enough because there's 20. 20 isn't enough because there's 50. 50 isn't enough because there's 100. Oh my God, babe, 300K month. Oh my God, in your sleep, passive income. Hey, there is nothing passive about the way passive income is being sold, because even if you have a pre-recorded program, you still have to market that. That is more painful than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You might have something that delivers itself. And that's what I always tell people is like, passive income is the result of working extra hard for years.
Or through wealth, investing your wealth, actually putting your wealth in investments.
But even that, okay, you produce that wealth, it's you have to put in the work. There's no way around it. There's no shortcut. There's no easy way. Now, I like to say there's no shortcut, but there are cheat codes.
Yeah.
And I do think doing the internal nervous system work is kind of the cheat code.
It is
because you're out here trying to solve the money problem. You're trying to get out of debt, or you're trying to save for this, or you're trying to make more money.
Yeah.
And yet you're not actually dealing with...
You're dysregulating yourself by doing that.
Right. You're making it worse, and you're wondering why. And you keep doing the same thing. Maybe if I do it this way, or maybe if I do it that way, but you're essentially doing the same thing to try to get the result, and you're not producing it.
With every gesture that you did, I'm going to do it this way, I'm doing it this way, that can really mean I'm going to buy this course, and I'm going to go buy this course, and then I'm going to buy this course, right? So there's that. You're making things worse for yourself financially. So sorry, continue. I like the gestures and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It can be anything. It can be anything that you do to avoid doing the internal work.
Yes. And you're left with debt and destruction.
So what does doing the work mean to you? Because everyone's like, everyone's like, okay, yeah, I'll do the work. Just what do I do? Tell me what to do.
What am I doing?
Tell me what to do.
So to me, doing the work means doing the healing work. Working on becoming you kind of energy of like, I'm unfuckwithable. I got me kind of thing.
So what is that? What is it literally like? Okay. I have my sense of like what it looks like, but like what does it look like? Boots on the ground.
Boots on the
ground.
What are we doing?
Does
it look like?
Yeah.
We are working on our identity wounds. That is exactly what it is. Because when trauma happens, and it happens to everyone, and it doesn't necessarily mean something dramatic happened. Trauma is what happens in your nervous system as a result of what happened outside of your nervous system. It's from things that happen to you too much or too little, when you receive too little attention, or don't feel like you're worthy, or that you're important, or you're dismissed, or your emotions are dismissed. All of that stuff, including...
You didn't feel safe.
Yeah, you didn't feel safe. You don't feel connected. At some point in the
past, in your childhood, and you could say throughout adolescence and stuff.
Yeah.
You didn't feel safe, and so you came up with... there was
identity wounds.
Right, there's a physical feeling in there, but then there's a mental construct tied to the physical feeling.
Yes. And from there, you start acting out with money. You have these... money, I call them money blocks, or whatever, wealth blocks, whatever you want to call them. So boots on the ground, to answer your question, is we go to because I do somatic experiencing, so we don't have to go into the trauma. We can work with the trauma, but not be in the trauma because of the vehicle and the method that I use. But it is really working on emotional resilience and inner child work and nervous system healing and somatic releasing of trauma. And then all of a sudden things start moving around and things start changing, and your perception, not just of money, but your perception of life starts to shift. And that is something that a lot of people told me that made me a little bit like, oh wow, that's really cool that I do that. But it's real, because that's what it did for me. Doing the work that I now teach, it changed my perception of life, and it had a trickle effect on my relationship with money. So what does it mean to you?
So apparently 88% of listeners have not left a review or subscribed. And I'm going to get right back to the podcast in just a second. But if you have found this episode helpful and you think that other people would benefit from listening, then all I ask in return is please just leave a quick review and subscribe. It'll take just 1 minute, and it might help other tattooers and other artists find this podcast and help them out. So please, it would mean the world to me, and it might actually make a difference for someone else. Thanks.
So what does it mean to you?
What it means to me, and this is something I do on a regular basis. I am, let's say I'm taking my daughter to school, and let's say it was a particular challenging morning. She didn't want to get dressed, or she didn't want to do this. She kicks and screams, right, you know. And I finally get her to school. This has really happened to me like maybe 2 weeks ago. And I finally get her to school. And all of a sudden, I drop her off, and I'm walking to the train to go home so that I can get into work. And I had a lot of work to do. And all of a sudden, I could feel in my body and my I'm behind. I should be working on this. And ultimately, you know, it's going to lead to my demise because I didn't work enough or create this or do this. Then this is going to happen, and this isn't going to happen, and
and then you're going to die alone.
I'm going to let everyone down. My company's going to fail. I won't be able to pay the bills. I'm going to let everyone down, and you know.
Yeah, I know. Of course I do.
And so, what I do in that moment is I just like, okay, I feel that. I get really present to what I'm feeling. I don't try to change it. I don't try to run from it. I don't try to do anything with it. I also don't attach to it. I'm not like, woe is me.
Yeah.
I get curious.
Yeah.
I get interested. I also want to separate that there's a thought and there's a feeling, and they're two separate things, right? My feeling in my body is that nervous system reaction, but the thought in my head is just interpreting that feeling in my body. And it's saying, blah, 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 you're going to die. And I just give myself permission to get curious around it. The minute I do that, it creates this space. Sometimes it's just a little bit of space.
It's a very small space, right? But it's like it's stepping away. Yeah.
Nothing about this is fun, by the way.
No,
Nothing about this
not.
is fun.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it feels easier to allow my brain to just get swept up with the narrative that everything's going to fall to shit if I...
It's called being human, Ryan. I mean, sorry.
Right. Meat sack, chemical-filled meat sack, right? And I practice that same practice on a regular basis. It looks like meditation. I've come to learn that like I cannot get around the fact that I need to meditate every day.
Yeah.
I can't avoid it. I want to avoid it. I want to make up excuses. I have a Post-it note in my mirror that says meditate every day, no excuses. Now, does that mean that I never make excuses? No, because sometimes I do make excuses. Again, I'm a chemical-filled meat sack that makes excuses, right? That's what it is to be a human being. Chemical-filled meat sack that makes excuses and blames shit and resents things.
Other beauties of being a human. Right. Yeah.
I think that's actually beautiful.
I mean, sushi, hamburgers.
And so for me, that's what it looks like. It's not fun. It's not exciting. You might even be listening to me talk about this, and you're like, God, that sounds fucking horrible. I'm already bored. You might even be checking out as I'm talking. This is probably a horrible topic to talk about on a podcast.
No, I'm with you.
But I'm saying people in general who might be listening, your brain might start checking out because what I'm talking about means that you have to face the fact that if you want freedom, emotional freedom, and again, there is only emotional freedom, it's in the work that you're avoiding. And I'm saying that because it was in the work that I'm avoiding. And I know when I'm avoiding, I'm like, okay, I want freedom, but are my actions consistent with someone that is experiencing emotional freedom? Because a version of me that experiences emotional freedom, they sit there with their feelings. They allow them to be. They put them in a bubble and they let them float away. And they do it again and again and again, over and over and over.
Two things that come to mind. The first one is to get to that stage that you're mentioning, we do need a fair bit of awareness that, oh, shit, I'm thinking that, as opposed to, like you said, getting swept away by the story. In the polyvagal theory, they say story follows state. So the stories that your brain makes follows the state of your nervous system. So, on your emotions, obviously.
What's the polyvagal theory? Just because
polyvagal theory, it's a study that was created, well, not created. There's a guy called Stephen Porges in the early 90s. Him and his team, including Deb Dana and a bunch of other really awesome psychologists, psychiatrists, neuroscientists, I don't know, a bunch of other theists that got together and developed the polyvagal theory that basically looked at the nervous system in terms of how it has a lot to do with connection, safety, and societal or like social connection for humans, and how it's not just fight or flight. There is another branch to it, which is involved in connection, in safety, in all of that stuff. And that revolutionized the whole, it revolutionized how we look at trauma. It made it more of a holistic look or perspective from like the accident, the divorce, to what we just talked about before. Trauma is anything that happened to you or didn't happen to you. So all of this kind of like started out the normalization and the way that trauma is now more mainstream, more widespread is just from the discoveries that they made back then. There's a lot of books. I mean, I'm not an expert in polyvagal theory. I've studied it a lot, but there's a lot of books out there on the polyvagal theory. I recommend books by Deb Dana, which is one of the people that helped with the development of it. And her book Anchored is so beautiful. It's like poetry, even though it really teaches you about your body, but it's so beautiful.
Cool.
So they say story follows state. So to get to that, to your level, we need to have this awareness of like, what's happening in my body? I'm getting swept away by a story. So that they might call it mindfulness, but I like the word awareness. But also, as somebody that has gone through a lot of trauma where I didn't feel good to be in my body, it literally did not feel safe for me to feel safe. That was the very, very big one for me. I was aware of my feelings. I was so scared of my feelings. That's why it was easier for me to worry about the feeling rather than be in the feeling kind of thing.
Let's slow that down even more.
Okay.
So it didn't feel safe to feel safe.
Yep.
I think even hearing that, I think it's a very curious thing to explore.
I know, yeah.
So, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Again, in my search of manifestation, and Joe Dispenza, big Joe Dispenza fan, but he's not the only one that talks about this. And I think they talk about this in somatic work in general, that you kind of get addicted to these emotional states, these chemical compositions, the hormones and neurotransmitters that get produced in a state of danger or threat.
Yeah, that becomes your norm.
And you get so used to it that when you feel safe, that feels dangerous.
Yes. There's also something I want to add to what you just said, is that sometimes certain emotions are registered as a threat in your body and your nervous system if these emotions were rejected when you're a child. If you were too loud or too much settle down when you're happy, then when you're an adult and you feel happy, subconsciously you're like, oh, that's not a good emotion. I got disconnected from my caregiver because I had that emotion. So like,
because when you were a kid, you experienced happiness and then you did whatever.
For example, yeah.
Right. For example, you were told, hey, don't do that. And then all of a sudden, internally, your nervous system is tying the feeling of happiness to the feeling of shame that you just felt.
Exactly.
And that gets kind of like imprinted.
Exactly. Anytime I feel joy. So my dad's hobby was to see us happy and find the source of our happiness and remove it. So in my nervous system, anytime I feel joy or happiness or fulfillment or contentment, I'm like, something bad's going to happen. Something's going to come and remove that, because that, from the ages of 1 to 7 or 0 to 7, minus 0 to 7, that is when our nervous system and our brain are being developed. And these are our formative years. These are our formative beliefs. That's when our beliefs were actually developed. So anytime I'm happy, I was sitting on the couch the other day. I was like, oh shit, I need to go and do my taxes. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cute. I'm so scared of being happy. I'm going to go do my taxes. Oh.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, essentially,
that's why
you sabotage your happiness in that moment. There's no better way to sabotage your happiness than to do taxes.
You protect yourself from happiness because you think happiness is, or you believe that happiness means something bad's going to happen, or you feel you come from such a traumatized culture that you feel guilty when you're happy, you know? So it's like, oh, I'm leaving, you know, I feel bad for being happy. What about the rest of us? What about, my uncles, my aunties, whoever survived World War III or II? No, sorry, hang on a second. Where am I? World War II. What about
We haven't
them?
survived World War III yet.
I know, right? So
We're about to, though. You and I, we're about to survive World War III.
Okay.
Yeah.
Deal.
I'll see you on the other side.
The other thing that I wanted to also say about the wonderful thing that you shared with us earlier was that emotional freedom doesn't mean not having emotions. Emotional freedom means freedom from being scared of having emotions. And I feel like it's the same for you. Tell us more about your perspective on emotional freedom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Emotional freedom isn't, I'm free to be happy all the time. That is not emotional freedom. Emotional
it's like you
freedom,
never get in pain ever again, okay?
It's basically like you're never afraid or feel fear or discomfort ever. You're just stoked all the time. No, emotional freedom is literally there is no resistance to feeling any feelings.
Yeah.
And you don't have to hide that you feel the way that you feel.
Yep.
You don't have to make up for or fill in you can just feel the way you feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to apologize for it.
Okay.
And it's probably one of the hardest things for a chemical-filled meat sack to do is to just feel your feelings. And just because you were feeling a feeling, it doesn't mean you have to do anything about it either. You can just
witness it,
feel the feeling.
Yeah.
And if you look at how much of your actions in your life are dictated by your feelings.
Oh, everything?
Everything
we do is to feel a feeling or to avoid a feeling.
That's it. That's it. And so if your feelings are really driven by these sort of chemical neuron reactions based on shit that happened in the past that, may or may not have even happened the way it did, because our memories we remember shit that happened that never even fucking happened. And then we suffer trauma over something that never even happened.
Yep.
The fact that the same situation can play out for two different people and one person can experience trauma from it and the other one doesn't, means that the trauma doesn't actually come from what happened. It comes from your story around what happened. It came from inside. So if your brain is just firing off chemicals in your chemical-filled meat sack, causing you to take action, and you aren't free to just be with, you can't just feel a feeling and do nothing and just be with that feeling, then are you free to do anything? Are you really living a life of free will? Or are you just simply a fucking cog gear machine, levers reacting to serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, whatever? It's not just financial freedom, it's freedom.
It's freedom.
It's that thing they speak of, moksha, liberation, real freedom. And that's ultimately what I'm after. And money is one of those things that keeps us so fucking triggered. So it's the string.
Does it make you feel triggered, right?
Doesn't it?
Yes.
I'd be lying if I said, oh no, because I'm a financial coach. I don't get triggered by money.
Oh my God. I had a fit with money yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a real thing, and it's not going away. I'm not going to pretend like it goes away, but the tools that I have, my ability to actually experience freedom, even in the face of a financial breakdown, even in the face of stress and strain. I've called you up plenty of times where I'm like, oh my God, Nadine, I'm dealing with this and that, and it's like, I can feel it, I can experience it, I can go through it, and then it doesn't dictate my actions moving forward. That's the freedom that I'm talking about.
Yeah. We're currently in the process of trying to buy a house. And it is a financially, emotionally exhausting process. Like, I feel financially exhausted, not just because we're spending a lot of money on the process, but because there's a lot at stake. There's a lot of It's a lot of everything. And
right.
honestly,
you invest so much into a house that you may or may not get.
yeah,
And then
emotionally.
you're worried, am I just investing into this and am I making a mistake?
It's like cold feet and all that
my
stuff.
goodness, there's so much emotion.
It's a lot of it. And so without the tools that I have, and especially without healing my money trauma, I wouldn't be able to be here happy and laughing and be like, it's going to be okay. I know that me 5 years ago, going through this with the scarcity mindset that I had, with all the wounding that I had, I would probably be now in bed or like just throwing up or maybe just pulled out of the hole. It's too big for me. I can't do it.
And that I think is kind of like you don't not have big feelings around money, but the big feelings that you're capable of being with get bigger.
What we would call financial resilience through emotional resilience, having the capacity to hold big feelings for yourself without freaking yourself out or like going out of commission, right?
Yeah.
And even if you do, you have that emotional awareness of like, okay, this makes sense. I'm going to normalize my experience that I'm freaking the fuck out and I need a day to just freak the fuck out and let it like ride it out without trying to force it. Just ride it out and let it be without shaming myself for feeling it, without saying, oh my God, I'm a money coach, I shouldn't feel this way, or oh my God, babe, I'm an abundant person, I shouldn't feel this way, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Just be okay with it, ride it out. And then it'll just naturally, because that's what the nervous system does. We have a natural mechanism in our bodies, in our nervous systems, to come back to regulation when we don't force it. So much talk out there about regulating your nervous system, but sometimes you don't need to regulate your nervous system because we are forcing our nervous system into a state that is not the current state of it, telling ourselves that it's wrong to feel this way. We have to be regulated. Whereas if we just leave things to happen on their regular natural course, we find regulation through maybe longer time, but we're allowing the body to get what it needs as opposed to forcing it out of the state that it needs to be in given the circumstances. What's funny?
No, I'm just like I love how passionate we both are about this topic. I was thinking as you were talking how obviously there's such a lack of financial education in schools.
Of course, yeah.
But then emotional education around money is entirely non-existent.
No, probably the only person talking about it.
Right.
Listen,
just you and me screaming into the void right here on a podcast that people probably turned off a while ago because they're like, oh my God, Ryan and Nadine are talking about some heavy shit. I don't have time for this right now. If you've made it this far into this episode, you fucking deserve a cookie.
Yes. I actually made really good cookies yesterday. So,
oh yeah? What kind?
Hit me up. Date molasses. Isn't that weird?
Ooh,
I know,
that sounds
right?
fucking good.
They're really good. They're really like soft and chewy. We finished them. I made a batch and we finished them. We're like, okay, we need to make more. But yeah, you deserve a cookie. A date molasses cookie.
I'm going to get right back into it, but real quick, I wanted to let anyone who's feeling uncertain about your financial future know that one, you are not alone. I speak to hundreds of tattooers and artists, small business owners all around the world every year, and it's very common to feel overwhelmed, confused when it comes to saving, investing, taxes, and all that stuff. And two, if you're looking for help with this stuff, I want to make it very easy for anyone who is serious about taking control of their financial future to book a one-on-one call with me and get clear around what actions you can take to build financial security and freedom. So if you're interested in that, or you know someone that might be, you can hit the link in the show notes below to book a one-on-one financial future session with me personally. Now, I do charge a small fee for this, but I want to make it as accessible as possible. I also want to note that I take about 5 or 6 of these calls per month, so availability is limited, but I would love to get to chat with you and see how I can help.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. You grow up, you are thrust into a world of financial responsibility. Mom and dad aren't paying for shit anymore, unless you're one of those trust fund kids, in which case, I mean, let's talk about trust fund kids for a second. I do not envy trust fund kids at all. I do not envy someone that has a free and clear ride for the rest of their life, because that leaves you with a whole other, you never learned the tools you just stay in an infinite state of helplessness, essentially. You never learn like, oh, how to like take responsibility and ownership over something, whether it works or doesn't work, because it doesn't matter. I've got a fucking giant pile of money. So I don't envy that. In fact, I feel bad. I've met and known people with trust funds that honestly, like, it's kind of like destroyed their lives. It doesn't sound fun. I know it sounds crazy to like feel bad for it, but
I've had clients like that, and it's a big shock to people when I'm like, do you know that people with money have money trauma? Just letting you know.
Oh my God. Sometimes they have more money trauma.
Yeah.
And so you're thrust into a world of financial responsibility. So many people I work with, especially been working with more like 21, 22-year-old tattoo artists.
Oh, nice. Cute.
That are like, yeah, I've never had to deal with taxes before. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm terrified by this. Oh my God. One artist that I spoke with, they said that they filed their taxes for the first time and they didn't understand deductions. And so the accountant said, hey, what deductions do you have? And they're like, I don't think I have deductions. And the accountant was like, well, you're going to owe $11,000 in taxes if we don't write off something. And they just didn't know what they were being told. And they also probably felt insecure about asking.
The
like,
shame of like,
like, hey, wait,
can
you,
I don't
before
know.
before I say, okay, I'll pay $11,000 in taxes, which you don't owe. Well, explain deductions to me for a second, because maybe I do. Instead of doing that, they just said, okay, I guess I'll just pay it.
No.
Because there was this fear or insecurity or whatever around it, or they didn't know, you know. First of all, this person should have been taught about income tax on and deductions on self-employment income. Second of all, they should have been taught that there is a fear of not having answers when it comes to money, a fear of feeling stupid or feeling shame or ignorant around money, and that there's no dumb questions to ask. And the minute you feel that sense in your body of like, oh, I'm going to ask a dumb money question, that's actually the minute you should fucking speak up and ask a question. That should actually be a sign, a trigger that you should be like, oh, yeah, let me ask this. This is probably a stupid question, but can I ask what a deduction is? That's what you should do.
Well, when we look at the history of it, and I'm not like a big person to talk about systemic trauma or like the gender gap or all of that stuff, but for real, like if women started having credit cards or bank accounts on their own, what is it, 50s, 60s, whatever?
Right.
We feel like an imposter. We feel like, oh, we're finally invited to the table, so I don't want to look stupid. So it's actually, sometimes it is a fight or flight response when you feel like your question might make people laugh at you or make people reject you or make people like wonder why you're even there. You know, like, a lot of like minorities, they go to the bank and they feel like they're small, right? Like when I was an immigrant to Australia as an Arab, I felt so scared and so insecure, and I was so led by people pleasing when I went and opened my bank account. I was like, oh yeah, that thing, you know, just trying to be cool just so that I don't look stupid and don't look like this immigrant person kind of thing, you know, it's for real.
My favorite solution to worrying about feeling stupid, because believe me, I've been in rooms with financial advisors and CFPs and, you know, that I'm like the stupidest person in the room when it comes to money.
Bullshit.
And I don't want to feel like an imposter.
Yeah.
The way I get over this is I lean into it. I lean into, and I tell them, I'm like, listen, for a second, just pretend I eat crayons and tell me what compound interest is.
Funny.
You know?
Yeah.
Just pretend I eat crayons. You know? What is this? Lean into it. Then you've owned the fact that you're like, yeah, maybe I'm a complete child about this, but like, explain it to me like I'm a kid. Explain it to me like I eat crayons.
Yeah.
Tell everyone, you should put that in your back pocket, and the next time you're talking to a financial advisor or a CPA or someone and they say a term and you don't fully understand what they just said, that's when you pull that out of your pocket and you say, hey, just for a second, pretend I eat crayons. Can you explain to me what you just said? It'll save you a fuck ton of money.
It will, and also, there's no shame in not knowing.
There's no shame in that. There's no shame in eating crayons. Crayons are delicious, especially the red ones.
We are not
Why are you
advising.
laughing?
We're not advising anyone on this podcast to eat crayons, by the way. This is
not
not
a
a crayon
health-
advertisement.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah. Oh man. So what's in store for you for next year for Tad?
For Tad, for the Artful Dollar. Honestly, I've been thinking a lot about starting a cult. No. No, you know what? Actually, it's funny. Someone...
A red crayon eating cult.
So we're going to all eat red crayons. Someone told me...
Kool-Aid,
who was
crayons, whatever.
Someone told me through the grapevine that like people were like, they thought that the Artful Dollar was like a cult. They're like, oh, it's like some like cult thing. Yeah.
What?
There was
But
some
it doesn't
rumor.
have that.
There was some rumor going around about that. And it's like, look, yes, I want you to give me all your belongings and I want you to stop talking to your parents, okay? But it's not a cult. No, I'm joking. None of that's true. What I mean is I want to start a movement.
Okay.
But
I feel like you already have. Sorry. Yeah.
Maybe there's some movement, maybe, we have some subscribers, some followers. Something's moving, right? I want to find my people who are artists, who are spiritually inclined. They have some sense that science doesn't have all the answers. And they are so sick and tired of financial helplessness.
I love that. Yeah.
And this narrative of the starving artist, it's just like, it's old. I'm not even mad at people for assuming that artists are bad with money. Because you know what? Artists are bad with money, but there's a reason why we're bad with money. It's because we're sensitive creatures.
Yeah.
It's okay to be sensitive. It's our superpower. It makes us great at being creative. But let's also take responsibility for the fact that, yeah, we're sensitive creatures, and we got to fucking deal with money. And so
we can do money our way.
We can do money our way.
Exactly.
And it's not going to be perfect. And it's fucking okay.
Yes, exactly. And money, and we have a seat at the table.
We have
money
a seat
is
at the
not
table.
just for so-and-so wealth, hedge fund, whatever.
No,
we
in
have a
fact-
seat at the table as healers, as creatives, as
100%.
whatever. Yes.
I actually think that when you do money without the emotion, without the creative, artistic, feminine energy of creativity, then you get modern day capitalism. And modern day capitalism ain't fucking working out for anyone.
No,
But
yes.
resisting capitalism isn't going to solve the problem
It's not
either.
going to help. No. It's like more money in our hands versus, because
Every
I
dollar
feel like,
you save is a dollar that doesn't end up in the 1%'s pocket.
yes. So artists and healers, we're going to be saving the world. I'm not just saying this out of my ass.
$1 at a time.
One penny at a time, but for real, like years ago, I was like, actually, this is how things might change, is that we lead from that as opposed to from greed.
Yeah. If I could think of one way to transfer the power from the 1% to the people that I think have the best chance of actually leaving the biggest positive impact on the planet, if I could transfer the power from the people at the top to those, it would be to put more money in the hands of the artists, the spiritual healers, the seekers, and through financial education, through mindset, through trauma work, through manifestation, whatever means necessary to create a new story, a new narrative, because that narrative isn't a popular one yet. And that's what we need.
That's what we need. And here's the thing. We feel when we have money trauma or when money is like the Achilles heel, we feel like more money is going to solve the problem. But that's only half of the equation. We need to feel comfortable talking about money. We need to feel comfortable managing money, need to find our own value-based, purpose-fueled way to money. And then that's when we do good things with money. If we are piling on money on top of unhealed, unresolved, unintegrated trauma, what we're going to perpetuate is more freak out and more trauma. Like how many times people
Endlessly.
like win the lottery and all of a sudden they lost it all. Or how many times have you had your biggest month in business and you're like, holy shit, this freaks me out. I don't know where it all went. It's through building that capacity in your nervous system to hold in that responsibility and the emotional liberation, resilience, whatever you want to call it. That all is the building blocks that we need to transfer and be good not hosts, but good, what's the word?
I like shepherd.
Shepherd, or there's another word for it. Caretaker. Yeah, we can go with that for money, because money it facilitates healing. It facilitates elevating others. It facilitates inspiration. It facilitates a lot of things, and it's just part of life. It's just part of life.
And I feel like what I'm talking about is bigger than the Artful Dollar. Like the Artful Dollar, I look at that as like a business that I created, that I run, a curriculum. There's a podcast, but bigger than that, more than that. Like, and I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. You know, I've been getting into doing speaking engagements. I really want to go around speaking. You know,
that's the word I was looking for. Steward. Okay,
like
sorry.
It.
Yes, speaking engagements.
It's a good word. You know, I've got the TED stage in my sights.
Yes.
You know,
I could so see you do that.
Ideas that change the world, and it's like, how do I? Yeah, if I could have one idea infect the minds of the world, it would be that artists and creative thinkers and spiritual healers are capable of having a wildly successful relationship with money. A wildly fulfilling absolutely. In fact, I think they're more capable than anyone.
And by us stepping into that role, what we create is called disconfirming experiences. So for example, if you have the belief that only the 1% is worthy of money, or only the 1% holds the wealth, but then we start noticing that more people that are not part of that 1% are actually good stewards of money. That is when we create these disconfirming experiences in our nervous systems, to where we actually see evidence that that's not true and that the other one is true. And that collapses time. That is how we can quantum leap, actually. It's through us being stewards, holding that vision for others, and not just inspiring, but teaching others. But that won't happen unless we are financially well-nourished. I'm not saying like absolutely fucking wealthy, but like well-nourished financially, because a malnourished healer or artist is not a safe healer or artist, because they are in survival mode, not because they're bad. They're just because they need to eat, whether it's emotional food or like actual food. We need that safety. We need that baseline. That's how, you know.
I would say like safety, financial security, financial safety doesn't come from just having enough. It comes from having more than enough.
Yeah.
That's how you feel safe, is because you know that you could be injured or sick, or some unforeseen circumstance could arise, and you're going to be okay. And honestly, that's what it is to be wealthy. I've been talking with another episode I recorded recently about the difference between like rich and wealthy. And like, you can be wealthy at any income level. You can be rich at any income level, but that richness will be short-lived. It will not serve you well. Whereas wealthy really is like a mindset. It really is a perspective. And maybe it's a nervous system adaptation as well.
It is. We've both read The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, right?
One of my favorite books,
He says wealth is in what you don't see.
Yeah.
So when we're chasing the fame and fortune of coaching, or, you know, whatever it is, being an artist, we're actually chasing the riches, because wealth is in what we don't see. That is another piece of education that we need to start looking at. It's not in the having the big months. It's not in how much money you make. It's in what you do with the money that you make. That's what's going to build that sustainability.
I think he's particularly talking about like, wealth isn't the car or the watch or whatever.
It's what you save and invest.
It's sitting in an account. It's boring as fuck, you know?
Yeah, it's boring as fuck.
It's in the time that you spent looking at your accounts, planning things out, moving it out, right? I'm not showing on
that
Instagram
hard work that you mentioned
3
about
hours
earlier.
a week that I spend like looking at my finances and going over financial plans and taxes. It's that you don't see. But
it's in the not sexy.
It's not sexy. And to add on to that, it's in doing the work. It's in sitting there with your fucking feelings, just fucking feeling your fucking feelings.
With your fucking feelings. Yep.
And unfucking them.
And then unfucking them. Oh man, what I love about your vision and what you want to do is that your vision is so big, whereas I'm okay being small. Like small for me, it's not small. It's like I'm okay with the enough. I'm okay with like just that. But I love that for you, and I love how you want to take on TED Talks and stages and all that. And
Because why not? Because I'm a chemical-filled meat sack. I'm going to die one day.
I don't have desires for that, to be honest. I don't.
But there's no reason to.
Yeah,
it's
right?
Totally
And that's so
unreasonable.
cool. Is that knowing that I don't really care, but I'm happy for you. I'm
here's the
rooting
thing.
for you.
Nadine, here's the thing I want you to know. I know that you absolutely could. Like,
Oh, I know that.
there's no reason
But,
why you couldn't do that. I don't think there's any reason why anyone couldn't do these things.
Yeah, I understand. It's just
I don't
like,
know
can
why.
I be bothered?
Why not be bothered? That's what I have
Because
to
I
say.
have
Why
other
not?
things I want to do with my life. Like I could dedicate my whole life trying to get on TED stages or whatever, or I can spend 2 hours a day practicing breakdancing, which is way more fun for me. So it's a question of values, and it's also in reserving the right to change your mind, because maybe one day you wanted to chase the books and the fame and the fortune. There's nothing wrong with that, but we need to normalize that it's okay to have normal goals. I just posted something like, it's not a limiting belief to have really boring, realistic money goals. Not all money goals need to be like a mansion and millions of dollars. It's okay to be normal. It's okay, because that
100%,
expectation is making us hate our current ordinary life. It's making us, I have one of my practices that I teach people, it's acknowledging abundance. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's the hardest thing ever. And then they realize it's because they have such a high expectation of their potential, and that's cool, but it's making them get to a point where they don't appreciate what they have now.
Sure.
And I'm not saying just because I'm not in the present moment doesn't mean that I'm not gonna fucking suddenly find myself on stages. That's possible, but that's not what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for the here and the now of like spending 4 hours baking cookies and being so okay with that, as opposed to using these 3 hours like I did before of like creating the perfect post. Again, no wrong or right. It's just that I'm so okay being a muggle. I mean, I'm not a muggle. I'm so okay being an ordinary person that cares about little things. Like,
Well, I mean, 90% of my life when I'm not on a podcast or like making content on social media,
you're on the phone to me.
I'm on the phone with you. I'm sitting in a sauna. I'm playing video games.
Mm-hmm. But are you present?
Am I present?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you are.
I'm
yeah,
very. I'm with my daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, I live a very ordinary life, and I love it. I fucking
same.
love ordinary,
I live
boring.
in Albuquerque. How ordinary is that? It has been magical, but yeah, it's pretty ordinary.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, I like to travel. I get to travel a lot for work, which is fun. I don't like, what is ordinary? What really fucking is ordinary? It's just like, here's all I care about. I don't care if your goals are big or small. That doesn't matter. Zero. Matters zero. All that matters. This is it. Are you following what excites you?
Are you here now? Are you here now? Are you present to your life? Are you able to receive your life? Because when we keep wanting more and unable to receive the here and the now, we're not here to receive the more.
Are you
we're not
following what excites you? That's it. If baking cookies fucking excites you and you followed it, congratulations. You fucking did it. Great. That's it. And okay, well, what else excites you? And the
quality of my presence also, that matters to me as well. Like, am I present or am I thinking of something else? Am I worrying about something else?
Sure, yeah.
Right? So just like that flavor of vibrancy.
I think all of that happens naturally when you're following what excites you.
When you heal your trauma. It's not like, heal, tick, done. But, when that's why I say emotional healing as well.
Now, are you saying that because it's hard to follow what excites you if you don't heal your trauma? Is that kind of what you're pointing at?
I like that question. So before, I used to think things excited me, but they didn't actually excite me. They were like a flee response. I thought things excited me, but all they were...
It was some expectation, external expectation.
You
thought this is what you should be excited by.
No, not necessarily. Like, I would get excited by things. So I'll give you a tangible example. Like, when I was single and living alone, I would get excited by anything that involved me getting out of the house because I didn't want to sit with myself or sit with my feelings or be alone. So I was getting excited by not wanting to face myself.
Sure. But maybe that's what served you in that moment.
It served me, of course.
You
yeah,
absolutely needed to do that because it then took you to the next thing. And
no shame, of course. Yeah. Every coping mechanism is absolutely valid, even whatever it is. I'm not.
Oh yeah, cocaine used to really excite me. I used to get really excited about cocaine, and I followed that up until the point that it no longer excited me.
The natural,
sitting in a church basement with a bunch of other sober people talking about our feelings excited me. And then I did that, Sometimes following what excites you, sometimes there is an element of self-destruction in there. And I'm not saying I want people to self-destruct, but I also feel like it's like alchemy. Like I needed to hit rock bottom in order to be able to get to the heights that I've been able to get to. I needed it. I look at our country, and I refuse to get into politics, but, I look at the political climate of our country, and sometimes I'm like, I don't care who becomes president, because we're clearly on a path of, like, political destruction, regardless of who becomes president. Like, things are not looking all that hot here in America, and let's be real, on this planet. And you know what? We might have to hit that unfortunate rock bottom of political insanity in order to wake up and actually connect and love and trust each other. Yeah. And do I want to see that happen? No, I don't want to see that happen. But it might, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
I agree. I mean, I don't necessarily poo-poo myself or shame myself for anything that I had to do to cope. I feel like life is just one thing after the other that we have to either cope through, flow through, whatever you want to call it. But I I'm a very big believer in a base of emotional healing. It's just about being aligned and being intentional and loving.
You and I 100% agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah, not loving yourself, but being more at ease with yourself. Because I was not at ease with myself back in the day where I was just chasing, going out and doing stuff like this just to escape myself. Yes, it served me and I'm grateful that I did it. And I met really cool people and I wouldn't be who I am right now without it. But I was at dis-ease with myself. I didn't like myself. I couldn't accept myself. That was really, No. I'd rather like myself.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we all, to some degree, have that going on. We're constantly learning how to accept ourselves wholly and completely. Every way that we are, every way that we are not.
Yeah. Would you say this is kind of like our mission here on this earthly journey? Is that we all go through something that kind of hurts us, traumatizes us, whatever, and then life happens, and it's just one sequence after the other of just accepting ourselves and loving ourselves.
Our
and
mission.
To know ourselves.
There was a video, a Shia LaBeouf video of him talking about like we're here to just turn our suffering into our healing. Use your suffering, use your pain,
pain to momentum
to heal, to create healing, and then ultimately heal. And by doing that, you end up inevitably healing others.
Was that on a Transformers, Ryan?
It was in the movie Transformers. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's what we're here to do. We're here to transform and ultimately become Megatron and defeat the evildoers.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That's the journey I'm on. I'm a seeker, and I'm here to learn. And the day that I wake up and I'm able to fully accept myself every way that I am and every way that I am not, I will probably no longer need this physical being.
I would say I think ascend. We would be somewhere else if the day that we wake up and we're like,
because
I'm cool.
Resistance causes persistence, right? So in order for you to persist, you need to resist something about yourself. And if you were to actually completely, I think that's what death is. You actually completely stop resisting and you expand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Happens sooner or later.
Yeah. Shit. On that
Well,
happy
on
note.
that note, thanks for listening to the Artful Dollar Unfuck Your Money podcast.
Unfuck your death mommy. What?
Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Bye. Can we just end the podcast like that?
We can. I mean, let's see what your editor says. You're like, okay, Ryan, you gotta say something. Where can people find you?
Where can we? Where? Oh, right, yeah. Before you die, where can people find you?
Well, for the next foreseeable 80 years, you can find me inside a TAD.
Inside of the Artful Dollar, yeah.
Inside of the Artful
Teaching trauma-informed money coaching inside the Artful Dollar. Yeah.
Or on my podcast. Well, this is also my podcast, the Unfuck Your Money Show.
The Unfuck Your Money Show.
And, I mean, I don't know. Ask Ryan. Where's Nadine these days? He'll let you know. Instagram, Nadine Zomot. NADINEZUMOT.
There you go.
Where can people find you, Ryan?
Between now and when I die, you can find me on Instagram, Ryan Roi Tattoo, RyanRoiTattoo.
TTTOOO.
And even after I die, you might be able to find me there. It's possible.
That's so true. Oh my God, that's so long-sighted of you. So deep, Ryan.
And on the Artful Dollar podcast, come have a listen to some weird-ass conversations about money.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for coming. It's been a blast. Always. Nadine, I love you. I wish I could give you a big hug right now.
Me too. I love you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, for listening to this episode. If you think this is going to benefit a fellow coach or a healer, please feel free to forward it to them. And it would be amazing if you were to leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I'll be forever grateful. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you next time on the Unfuck Your Money Show. Lots of love and take care.